Dr. Cecil and I talked about this. In the last session we had prior to our coming here, some things came out about my life. And at that point, I realized that I was opening up to share a lot of things. And I told him that I didn't mind sharing it with you here because it's key to everything that's here. As a little girl, I was molested at the age of 4. But prior to that, I knew something was wrong because I was always alone. My parents were basically doing their thing. So I would run from house to house, knowing that something was wrong, desiring a place to stay or someone to take care of me because I knew I had no one. After that, I became very, very angry. But many people don't recognize, and they won't say that it's unforgiveness that's the root, but it's unforgiveness at the root. And a lot of times you will have people come in. That is something you'll have to discover because you learn to mask it. I did. I went to counselor upon counselor. I can't tell you how much money I have paid because of this. I got no help. When I first took the Christian counseling class, prior to that, one of Dr. Cecil's, his prior student, worked with me for 2 years. And she began to bring some things out. Then I took the class for myself. I was still masking it. 4, when I was molested. When I was taking the class, it was not until I was, let's see, I think I was maybe about, I was in my 50s. But it didn't work for me because I thought that once I got saved, once I got filled with the Holy Spirit, everything was supposed to disappear. It didn't because there were some root causes to that. And it was basically unforgiveness. And after this period, I became a child that was angry. I have a 25-year-old son that's angry. An angry child becomes an angry adult. An angry adult raises angry children. And it wasn't until here recently that I realized that I had a problem forgiving because at any time this anger comes back and you're angry at the same people over and over again. I blamed my mother and my father for a lot of things, and my problem really began to manifest at 6 years old when I was in first grade. I went to school one morning so angry because my mother wasn't there, and so angry because my dad sent me to live with an aunt, and all I could see at night was these teddy bears, red and blue, that were on the wall, and it looked like they would come out at night, and I would just stay disturbed. So I went to school one morning, and I told the teacher, I sit there and I cried all morning. I never could tell them what was wrong, so I told them that my dad had killed my mother that night because inside of me, that's what I wanted to happen. I was angry. Then, to top it off, I have an older brother who's 11 years older than me. Every chance he gets, he calls me crazy and stupid. As a little girl, as a child, when you hear those things, they become real. You begin to manifest that and you think it. Then on top of that, the molestation itself, one of the things that it causes is sexual immorality. You will do all kind of things to yourself. And a lot of times you wonder, Lord, why am I promiscuous like this? But then you go between long terms of being promiscuous, then these long terms of abstinence. You don't want to deal with anybody. You don't want to see anybody. So you sit in church. You sit back at the back of the church. You just want to go because you know that there's something there for you, but you can't get the help that you really need. And you wonder and you wait. As an intercessor, I was an intercessor for 5 years in one church. I could believe God for anybody's healing. I could trust God for everybody else. I couldn't trust God for myself. I wanted 7 children. I was pregnant 7 times, but I only had 2 to live. One lived 2 days, the other one 5 days. That compounded the anger. Then the suicide attempts. I got to a point that I felt so unworthy of God's love because I didn't have the worthiness of my parents' love. I felt that they thought that I should disappear, that I was unworthy. That I began to say, okay, God, I just want to die. I would take things. But right in the midst of taking these things, something would say, you don't want to die. And I would get on the phone and call anybody I can to tell them, how can I get this stuff out of my system? I've taken this stuff. But the root cause still I didn't know was unforgiveness. Everything here, anger, hurt feelings. Someone could say something to me. For a long time, I sit in a church, and some of the ministers there said it was something wrong with my spirit. Not knowing that my spirit was perfect, that I had a soulish problem, I took that. My feelings stayed hurt. I stayed guilt-ridden. If you say something to me, I would argue with you at the top of a hat. I had long bouts of depression. All of this. Bulimia, I didn't have bulimia, but I gained lots and lots of weight because I thought the only thing that would solve my problems was eating. And that's what I used. I used food. You know, some people have an addiction. Food was my addiction. So I decided to go to Overeaters Anonymous. That didn't work. Everything that I thought that I could do to solve my problem, it didn't work. Until after I started to disclose what had happened to me. And I disclosed it to Dr. Cecil and 4 other women. That's when I began to see the biggest problem you have is unforgiveness. I blamed God for the death of my children. I blamed him because he let me as a young child be molested and no one cared for me. I can say even though I was in a home with my mother, I raised myself. And I spent a lot of times running from the men that she dealt with. My dad was there. He was around. He wasn't in the house with us because he was busy taking care of someone else's children. The anger, the unforgiveness just compounded. Compounded. Unforgiveness is very hard for me to forgive, but I'm learning to forgive. It's a daily process. It's a day-to-day process. You can't tell anyone that it's a quick fix, which is what secular counselors will try to tell you. It's not. It's daily getting before God. Ask him, Lord, if I do anything today, forgive me. And I had to learn that most of my anger was on me. I blamed myself to the point that at the age of 30, I complained so to my doctor that I asked him to go ahead and give me a hysterectomy. The reason I did, I didn't want to feel the pain of seeing another child die. And it was a way to manipulate. Instead of me physically hurting myself, I could get someone else to take that pain away. I'm sharing this with you today because you're going to run across a person that's just like me. And you're going to have to dig to get to the root because they are not going to give it up. It was until I got a revelation of what my problem was and that unforgiveness was the root of it that I began to change. I am opening up. I am telling you something that for years I didn't admit, because when I admitted it to my parents finally at the age of 19, they wanted to know what was wrong with me. I admitted it. They told me it was a lie. So I have sat hurting in church for years. If it wasn't for Dr. Cecil, I would still be closed off. But I know now that God set me here for this time in this period of my life to speak about these things. Because in doing this, letting someone know, I've never seen a secret that comes out that doesn't destroy anyone or hurt anyone. When I finally really sat down and talked to my dad, every time he sees me, I can see the pain in his eyes. Because he recognizes now that he didn't do what he needed to do, but I'm okay with it now. I forgive him. When my brother now gets ready to say the word, there's something that I know when he's getting ready to say the word, stupid or crazy, I tell him to just go ahead and say it. But he refuses to say it because he knows I can tell him now what God says about me. He don't want to hear that. But I can face these things now. When I do something wrong, I won't say I'm perfect and that I don't make mistakes. Oh my God, I make mistakes. I can go into a very dark place. But the one thing that has kept me, I ask the Lord that when he sees me go into that dark place, that he helps me to get out because it's something that I can't do by myself. And he has been faithful. He has been faithful. He has kept me. I am one that can say I am still here throughout it all because I literally should have been gone with the number of times I tried to kill myself. I'm here. I now know that I have purpose. I didn't know that as a little girl. I didn't know that. There was a time when I was a little girl, I had the ability to read a book. I didn't study for tests because I didn't find that I needed to. I could just read whatever it was I needed to read, and in the middle of a test, I could just kind of scan it in my mind. And I knew what to fill out. So that, and of course, it made me a student that accelerated. But I had problems. Unworthy, unfit, not worth anything. To manifest, to top it all, I told an aunt once when my parents got ready to separate, I said, I'm going to pray to God that they stay together. She told me, God don't have time for your prayers. He's too busy working on other prayers. So all of that's another anger. The anger builds up. An angry adult child is an angry adult. An angry child is an angry adult. An angry adult raises angry children. One of the keys I found out, and I know now, to find out about unforgiveness when you're dealing with someone with anger, if they have children, you ask them about the state of their children. It's not going to be pretty what they tell you. And then you know the root cause. You can go in, you can deal with the unforgiveness. Everything here is what happens with unforgiveness, except one he didn't put here, and I asked him if he would. Suicide attempts. They won't tell you, but eventually it will come out. I've kept my secret for a long time. And Dr. Cecil had me to do some work on 40 Days to the Promise. That's when I realized just how I knew I was messed up. Because when I came the last time, when I got recertified, I told them I'm here as a counselee, not to be a counselor. I was there for me. And I cried because I was in a position where I have always counseled other girls. I could not figure out why these women would come to me. And I was able to give them the answer that God said and told me to give them. But it didn't work for me because of that. But it's unforgiveness. I couldn't forgive. I was angry with my mother. My mother died when I was 35 years old. I still had that anger. Now I can understand why she raised me the way she did. She only followed suit in what happened to her. My father, his father was known to leave and go off and stay with another family and then come home 6 months or so later. He only did what he knew to do. So now I can forgive him. He was sick last week. He had to go into the hospital on emergency. I took 2 days off from work. I did not take the 2 days off from work to be with him. I took the 2 days off from work so that I could focus on praying for his health because I couldn't do it with other distractions. I couldn't do that prior to that. If he went in the hospital, so be it. He's in the hospital. I'm not touching it. I'm not going there. The love has started to open me up, knowing that my biggest problem is unforgiveness. So I ask myself now, when a situation rises up, I ask myself, if I get angry, I say, okay, what is this about? Am I walking in unforgiveness of something that has happened and I didn't realize that there was something I was holding against this person? Or is it with me? Or am I trying to put it on God? I am freer today than I've been in a lifetime. And I'm 61 years old. So it doesn't matter what age. It doesn't matter who you counsel. You're going to find out that the root cause of a lot of counselees' problems, they have forgiveness issues. And I just wanted to share that with you all because that is one of the keys to being an effective counselor. They're not going to tell you the truth. That's something you're going to have to, in some cases you might have to dig. Because I would sit in and I was paying good money. But I didn't tell anybody that I was molested as a child and that all of it stemmed for that because why would I tell them that? They don't need to know that. They just need to fix what was going on with me then. But you got to go all the way back to the root. You have to go all the way back. Or you'll have someone like me, a yo-yo. You never know. You never reach it. You just dig. You just dig. But one of the keys, I do believe, you find out if they have anger issues. Anger issues will tell it all. But every last one of these things manifest under unforgiveness. That's all I wanted to share with you.